Cyber season is in full swing with our pals Isotope and Native Instruments.
Get huge discounts on everything from Guitar Rig 7,
Complete 14 bundles,
and one of our favorites here at the Cult and Culture Podcast,
Ozone 11 EQ. Go to isotope.com
and nativeinstruments.com
to feast on the audio goodness. Yum.
You can also get additional savings on other softwares by using the code
RUIN10.
DistroKid now also has a motherfucking app. The DistroKid app is available for iOS and Android. You can download it at distrokid.com/app/, or you can get it in the App Store.
Fuck. All right, we're rolling.
Planet B
Presents.
Cult and Culture Podcast.
Welcome to episode 35 of the Cult and Culture Podcast. This is Justin Pearson.
And I'm not Luke Henshaw.
All
right. This episode has one of my closest longtime friends, Rob Moran, who's one of the many San Diego mayors, one of the few San Diego mayors, musical mayors. He was in Unbroken, Over My Dead Body, Some Girls, Narrows, probably some other stuff. He's just such an outstanding human being. He co-owns Heartwork Coffee, who's one of our awesome sponsors. I don't know how to say it. I mean, he's just like one of the most genuine, sincere, sweetest human beings I've ever met. I just absolutely love him. Yeah. And it's crazy too, because our conversation on this podcast could have went in a gazillion directions for hours. He's just one of my favorite people. So it's cool because I did a long time ago, I did like a brief little, before this was like an official podcast, I did a little piece with him, Cult and Culture volume, one of the volumes before it was an episode. So it was cool to have him back on proper. And this episode actually is pretty special because we filmed and recorded at one of the best restaurants in San Diego, Kindred. So Corey invited us to collaborate with him, Corey, the owner of Kindred, and we decided to film and record there, just to kind of get a change of scenery and also to just say what's up to an awesome restaurant that's now a San Diego staple. It's like, you know, when people hit me up and say, what record stores or what restaurant should I go to? That's Kindred's on my list.
Yeah. I was there on Saturday.
There's like, and it's cool because there's like secret, like metal and punk and hardcore stuff hidden. And like, you know, you saw these rando regular people there that have no idea like how rad it is. There's even an Unbroken named beverage, non-alcoholic, of course, on their menu. I
like the alcohol. Their drinks are very good.
Yeah,
very good.
The drinks are amazing. And also everyone that works there is amazing too. So that says a lot too. Because sometimes there's like rad places and the people are kind of like, there's just no fucking around with Kindred. So so it's cool. And if you are listening or watching this and you come to San Diego and you're not from San Diego, you definitely should check it out. It's just a great spot and it's a cool place to support. And they're also in tune with, you know, just like the artists and musicians of San Diego. So thanks to Kindred. Anyhow, we are excited for you guys to check this podcast out. We hope you enjoy yourselves.
And before we do start, I do want to say there's going to be a complete sound shift. Don't be alarmed because we did record this in an empty restaurant, so the acoustics are a little. And we didn't know the airplanes came so close to that restaurant. So
I knew it when I was on Guy Fieri's show. They kept having to stop. They filmed it there to one of their dumb shows at that spot. Anyhow, so yeah, I'd like to give a special shout out to this episode's sponsor, which is Rock Roll Repeat. It's a t-shirt company run out of the Bay Area. They gave me this awesome t-shirt with Crime on it. Legendary punk band. They've done a bunch of cool shit over the past many years. They did some collaborations with people from the Cramps. They're doing one now with Lookout Records, which is pretty rad.
Oh, nice.
There's a bunch of weird things, but I did a sponsorship, or I did a benefit T-shirt with them a while back with some Locust artwork. They're just it's a really rad company. I highly recommend checking them out. So if you go to Rock Roll Repeat and enter the discount code Disciple, you'll get $10 off your order, which is pretty substantial if you are just buying one shirt. But hopefully you'll buy more than one.
Yep.
Anyhow, check it out. Rock Roll Repeat. We'll see you on the other side.
Hey.
Hello, my name is Rob Moran. I'm born and raised in San Diego, and I do lots of things.
Very impressive things.
Yep.
Come on, Unbroken.
That was 30 years ago.
It was last weekend at the Che. Oh man, Narrows.
Some girls. Over My Dead Body.
Yeah, you got all kinds
The
of
Vows.
You got some
SS Warhead.
and an avid D&D player.
Avid D&D player. Oh God, I love Dungeons and Dragons.
So to be clear,
Coffee.
we have another bass player on the show.
Yeah, all bass players.
Yes.
Do you identify as bass or guitar?
Bass.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible guitar player. I'm great with power chords, though. I'll write you some riffs. I did some girls. I played guitar in some girls.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Okay, so real quick, we're at Kindred, and I mean, you introduced me to Corey, the owner.
Yeah.
And I think on the menu there's a Unbroken beverage.
Yeah, Kiss of Steel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Which I stole from Sam Hain.
I know. I always thought it was I was like, what? There's a Sam Hain reference, but I don't see the Unbroken one. But yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Kindred, it's such a great spot. It's got like its roots in punk and
metal and
Yeah.
underground culture.
cool
and
shit.
DIY stuff. It's amazing.
The
I
best
love
is
this place.
the sign above the door.
Yeah.
Hardcore will never die, but you will.
That's true.
It's very true.
It's true.
Yeah.
You will die.
I know.
Hardcore will remain on forever.
Yeah.
But I think they were talking about hardcore techno. I don't think they were talking about the stuff that I don't know.
Don't ruin it.
They're all about gabber here.
Oh man. Okay, so you tried to avoid your, I guess, your resume, but I think it's very, very, very important in what Unbroken did. It's somehow, and I don't know how it happened. Like you came from Chula Vista, and you were with all the kids from Santee, and a band started that became something like a fucking unicorn, some rare ass shit.
Just some rare ass shit. So I grew up in Chula Vista, and I met Unbroken guys like Steve. I met Todd and Eric through our mutual friend Angela Eubanks at Earth Day in front of the Cultural Center de la Raza. Like we were just happened to be walking. And I had seen Angela before somewhere at a show, and she's like, "Oh, this is my friends Todd and Eric." And Todd had a judge patch on his bomber jacket, or one of them did. Todd or Eric, one of them did. And I said, "Oh, like, are you guys going to the show tonight? Judge is playing with Bold at my friend's garage down in Chula. Like, you should come out." Like, "Oh yeah, we'll try to get down there just if we can get rides." So that's how I kind of met them the first time. Then I met Brian Hill, who was in a band with Cliff and Eric and Todd and this guy Chad called Flatline. And there was a house show up in Claremont, and I went to that show. The band broke up like kind of right after, and they said, "We're starting a new band called Unbroken. Cliff is leaving. Do you want to be in the band?"
So Cliff was playing bass?
I think he was playing bass in that band.
Cliff from Struggle.
Yeah, Cliff from Struggle. Yeah, to be clear. Yes, Cliff from Struggle.
Not Cliff from Social Spit.
No, I wish. That'd be awesome.
I know.
Yeah, so Cliff from Struggle was playing bass in this band, and they said that we're going to rename ourselves. You know, we don't know yet, and I think Unbroken, the name was getting thrown around. Years later, Todd and Eric had told me, "Oh, we only asked you to be in the band because you were popular and like people knew you, and we just thought people would come to the show." which is probably true, right? I don't know if that's why they asked me, but so that's kind of how we started. Started practicing. Our very first show was actually down the street at the Alano Club here in South Park. The place is still there. I think Struggle played.
Yeah.
Might have been your last show?
No.
Struggle's last show?
It wasn't
No.
our last show was with you guys at the Che.
Oh, that's right. Okay. But Struggle played. I remember you guys and Capo and all, kind of like these mirror high school kid bands. Like, there was a lot of punks that went to Mirror High School in Kearney. So it was like us, Struggle, and 2 or 3 random bands. But at the Alano Club, a couple blocks away from Kindred. And I remember we played Straight Edge Revenge.
I know, I was so mad at you guys.
Justin was mad, called it fascist, grabbed the microphone so nobody could sing along, and rolled on the floor. He's like, "This song is fascist, you can't do this." And he had his Cheeto dreadlocks, orange dread. You must have been like 14 at the time, 15. You're rolling around on the ground, not letting anyone sing along. You're like, "I won't allow it. This is fascist."
Okay, I'm gonna defend myself here. I don't know if I would have called it fascist, but I definitely was like, all you motherfuckers are gonna not be straight edge. Watch. And you were the only one that kept it true, but I was like, because Dylan was singing. I'm like, Dylan, you motherfucker. I love Dylan so much, and I love him post straight edge, but when he was straight edge, I was like, dude, you're kind of a butthole. So I was fucking pissed, dude.
I don't know.
I was fucking pissed.
I thought it was fascist leanings is what. But anyway, that was our first show, and then things kind of moved from there. As a band, started just playing randomly around town, getting shows like in Orange County, Riverside, L.A.
But it became a thing that was pretty unique for hardcore, and I think a lot of it would be like stylistically, and that's not always the most important thing, but I feel like it is very relevant, because if you're a 12-year-old kid in a mall and you see someone with a Crash shirt, that's like a code, so you know what's up. But so you guys kind of redefined straight edge hardcore, but also just kind of like hardcore in general, in my view, because you guys were influenced by other things that at the time I don't think was very obvious to hardcore. I mean, talk about Bold and Judge, and then Unbroken. You guys stick out like a fucking sore thumb in a good way.
Yeah, it was very different. I think we liked that stuff at first, like growing up, and some of it still holds up today, some of it doesn't, but it's like with anything. You go back and like 20 years later, does this band still like sound as good as it did when I was a kid?
You're talking about Bold and Judge?
Or any, not just them in particular. I mean, because I still enjoy Judge now and again, but it's like just in general, just music in general. I think for us, we were very... a lot of people in Chula were super into Smiths, Morrissey, like Depeche Mode. Like a lot of us went to Morrissey's first U.S. show ever at the Sports Arena, solo show.
Do you think that was like a Latinx thing too?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's just what you grew up on. You grew up listening. You were a rocker. Like you listened to, Soda Stereo, or you'd listen to Depeche Mode or The Cure, or the Smiths. Because that's just kind of what you kind of just got into, and then you were like into punk,
Yeah, but because most hardcore kids were just white kids.
Yeah, but in San Diego, I would say it was more diverse. I think even in San Diego, I mean, this was majority white, but you'd go to shows and you'd see just a mix of kids, of all backgrounds.
That was a culture shock for me, moving to San Diego, and then I'm like, who the fuck is this Morrissey guy, and why does everybody love him?
Where are you from originally?
Riverside.
Okay.
So that hadn't hit. I've heard of the Smiths then, I mean, I was 12 years old. Mm-hmm. But when I got here, it was just fucking huge.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like a big thing here. I mean, it still is. I think it's like a lot of those... I don't want to make this about a Morrissey podcast, but...
fuck that guy.
Yeah, but I thought this was a podcast about the cult, so I came prepared with like, Sonic Temples, trivia, and... No?
Let's pass on that one, too.
Okay, too bad. I like the cult. No, but so we were kind of into that thing. A lot of kids were, and then when I started hanging out with Eric and I was like, oh, you guys like the Smiths, the New Order, and Joy Division? Like, yeah. So, you know, we got into it. And then Steve was kind of hanging around practice when, you know, he wasn't fully in the band yet. And Steve was a little younger than us, like by like 2 years maybe. So I think he's like 1 or 2 years younger than everybody. He was 16 when he joined the band, but he was wearing like Cure and Smith shirts like from the day I met him. He was like all into that stuff too. So we just kind of bonded, like, yeah, we like metal and hardcore, but we love all this British music, you know. And I think with the Smiths Morrissey stuff, a lot of those songs are, you know, yes, they're love gone wrong, right, whatever, but there's also this undercurrent of being other, being an immigrant from somewhere else, and identifying with that, what it means to be other in a place where you don't fit in. And I think that's why a lot of people, especially here, like my parents are from Mexico and I was born here, and so it's like you have half a foot in Mexico and a half a foot in the US, and you're supposed to, and I'm not brown enough for Mexicans and I'm not white enough for white people, like, you know, American or America or whatever. So you always had this weird shift of like not belonging and feeling other. And I think a lot of the Smiths and early Morrissey stuff, you really identified with, like, you know, coming from Ireland to England and what that meant, not being English. You're Irish. It's the same. It's like, well, yeah, you're American, but you're Mexican American. It's like there's always this asterisk. And I think that kind of lovelorn for, like, I love my country, but I don't identify it because I'm always looked at as other. And I love Mexico, but I'm not Mexican because I was born here. So I think there's a lot of that undercurrent in why people identified so much with, like, Smith and Morrissey and Latin culture, because there was this, like, sense of being other.
Do you think that, and not to diminish that, because I think all that's very important, because it's but a microcosm of the world is the subgenre of punk and hardcore. So maybe it's the same thing, because I mean, I would talk to Eric about how he never felt that he fit in with hardcore. Yeah. But he was the best, you know. So it was pretty crazy to see it like that, because I feel like maybe the artists that really did strive to be, I don't want to say like successful, but the ones that were like, that you identify as like the like pillars of punk or hardcore were always kind of like, maybe, I don't know, I guess the ones on the fringes of it were the ones that were more innovative. Yeah, I mean, and then we all draw from those innovations, right? I mean, I think you look at it goes everywhere, from, you know, the Pistols to saying, yeah, this is punk and you dress like this, and it's part fashion, part like we're just going to make a bunch of noise because we don't give a fuck, you know. But then you have people saying something like Polystyrene, who's like, oh, bondage up yours, like, fuck that. You have bands like Conflict with songs like I've Had Enough, about, you know, female empowerment. So you have all these things, that these fringe people, but there's ideals within that fringe that, like, teach you more than what school or society has. I mean, and I think that's why I gravitated towards punk, or why you gravitate, or you know, we all gravitate, because there's this fringe thing of, like, why is Genesis Peorage asking people to send these things in for this temple of psychic youth? You know, like, what is this? And then you read about Genesis Peorage and the temple and Throbbing Gristle and Psychic TV, and you like, wow, this crazy kind of punk adjacent offshoot of, like, noise and, like, weirdness and cool things that were just created because it's just art. And that's what I love about punk and hardcore. People, you're free to do whatever you want. But a lot of people don't. People
don't, because they're scared, right? And I think I admit I'm scared. I only go so far. Like, I never dressed the part. Like, how I dress right now is how I dress most of my life. Like, I never had crazy spikes. Like, never did anything real off the beaten path, you know. But I played with people in bands that do that, and, you know, there's people like you guys, like, pushing boundaries for art's sake, because it's Like, I want to see what happens when I push the bubble over here. Does it burst, or does it like allow me to stretch and go further still, you know? And I think that's what's beautiful about things like you took a chance, you know, you started a label. Like, why? Because you wanted to just push the envelope and do something that you believed in and support your friends. And same things, like, I started bands because I wanted to be creative. I wanted to see the world. I knew I didn't want to go to school. That wasn't the path for me. Yeah, I have a job and I own a coffee shop and all these things and have a kid. So I have, like, my life has always been 1 foot here, 1 foot there. But you know, and I do just enough to feel that creative outlet, you know?
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. I mean, especially with people that I work with, are too scared to step out of line and want to keep shit so traditional.
Yeah.
I think it reflects on them and not willing, you know who we're talking about mainly on shit like that. But yeah, pushing boundaries it's boring to stay in the lines. It's boring.
It is. I mean, we touched on it earlier when we were talking with Becky pre-pod about, you know, me just being me being in New York last week. It's like, I love New York. New York's awesome. I can dip my toe in and hang out and enjoy it and love it and get lost in it and have a blast. But I'm not built for New York. Like, just like creative stuff. Like, I can dip my toe in and have fun and be creative and see the world and play with my friends and have outlets and do things that that most people don't get to do. But I can't live in it, and I have nothing but respect for the people that can live in it. But I would say idealistically I live in it. I still feel punk, and I do things that support and all that. But on a day-to-day basis, like, I'm not, like, my job isn't being a creative full time. You know,
I think that people outside of San Diego can't hang here either. And it's not that it's like rough and hard, and it's not, the hustle is like in New York, I get it. But when people are here, they're just like, this is weird, I don't understand it. It's not for them. So maybe we have this like DNA where we're able to kind of work among it. But also too, like, going back to like the sort of uniform or like the identity of things, to me, I felt like when Unbroken fully like came into its fruition, like, I felt like it was the most punk thing ever, because you were redefining, you know, hardcore or straight edge hardcore, and you were fucking with people without fucking with them, you know? Like, you had, it was, to look at you guys look like a bunch of Morrisseys playing Slayer and being like the best on any bill was very impressive and very punk in its true essence.
Yeah, I think that it all kind of just morphed into that. It wasn't like we all woke up one day and like...
It's accident.
It's accident.
And that's the best thing. That's the most honest thing.
Because it was just an accident. Like, we were already like wearing our hair in pompadours. Like, even like 91, 92, you look at the photos, like, we have some of us have pompadours, and like, you know, sometimes we might be wearing a hat, but there's like big hair, or you'll see a band shirt that's not normal of that time. And yeah, we got a lot of shit. People are like, this is not hardcore. You're not punk. You're not. How is this straight edge? Like, why are you talking about Suede? Like, how and Blur? Like, how is that? What about this band and that band? It's like, yeah, those bands are cool, but I like that. But I love this. You know, it's like, and I felt that we were drawing on those influences, like, you know, the Damned and Jehu and Suede and Smiths and Pulp, Blur, all that, Joy Division, all that stuff. We were drawing on those influences, but not making it so obvious. It was just like the themes lyrically were desolation and sadness, which is a lot of what that music is. Yes, there's party jams there, and dance music is part of that whole scene with like New Order and all that, but it was very much I feel isolated. Like, and I'm not happy, so I'm going to talk about why I'm not happy. And I want to die, but I'm not dying because I have an outlet to keep living. And I think that's how I felt at that time. And Steve said something in an interview like a few months ago that like really resonated, because at the time, you think it's these big world issues like, oh my God, I'm devastated, I'm dying, but it's probably just normal teen stuff. We were all kids. Like, my girlfriend left me, I lost my job, my parents suck. But in the end, it's that's as big as your world gets when you're a teenager. And then as you get older and have to move out and have a job and all these things, you kind of realize that the world's bigger, and that your problems don't mean as much to somebody that's struggling in a third world country, or someone who's struggling to get across the border to make a better life for them and their family, or somebody who just lost someone close to them. Like, your struggles are much smaller compared to the rest of the world.
But also maybe too, for you guys as young people, you seemed a lot more empathetic, where there was like a lot of hardcore bands at the time. I don't know, like, I guess off the top of my head, like thinking about bands like Earth Crisis or something that were very militant on a very one-dimensional level, and not which were very problematic, like the sort of like violent aspect to people, and making things being excluding people, or not really identifying like a more mature reason for why they are reacting to something. Where I felt like a lot of the Unbroken stuff had depth to it, and maybe it was naively written, or whatever, but like I felt like there was I guess just more depth to it. It seemed a little bit more intellectual.
Yeah, I mean, some stuff for us was deeper, and I wrote a lot of the lyrics, and it was very much a deeper feeling of hopelessness at the time, because I remember I was like, oh wow, I'm out of high school, I have to be an adult, and I'm in this band that is about to like go on tour and do all these things, and what am I supposed to do with my life? And it's very daunting, but you just say, fuck it, I quit, and you just go and see what happens. And I think that those lyrics at the time were very deep and personal. Some of the lyrics were about being hopelessly stuck in this machine. Like, there's nothing we can do. We're all fucked. Like, so make the best of it while you're here. Like, try to make the world a kinder place. Try to create something beautiful. Try to make music. Try to make art. Push the boundaries. Make incredible food for people. Whatever your art is, try to make it a beautiful place while we're here, because we're all fucked. Yeah. Like, we're stuck in this machine and there's no escape. I mean, that was, one of the lines I remember writing was, only in death can we stop supporting them. Like, that's it. Unless you go off grid, you're supporting something, Like, and it's hard, and it's being 19 and thinking that way. I'm like, it was depressing. Like, I thought about, like, I'm fucked. Like, I literally thought, like, I'm fucked. I remember reading, like, interviews with, like, Crass and Conflict about how they, like, had squats. I'm like, there's nothing like that here. There's, there's houses where you got, like, the E Street house where you have, like, 50 people living in the house, And it wasn't a squat. You still had rent. You still had to pay utilities. You had water. You had to go to the grocery store. You had to, there's no escape unless you just go off grid. And I'm not built for off grid. So this is hopeless. So what I'm going to do is, yes, it's hopeless, and there's not much I can do to change the system, because it's the railroad's there. We're on this train. Like, it's no stopping, and you can't blow up the train. Like, I mean, you could, but for the day. Yeah. And then the train, someone repairs it, and the train goes right back on track. So my thing is, like, I just want to be kind, and I just want the world to be a kind place. And if I can be kind to people, or do something that inspires people, or support people that are doing kind things, that's all I care about.
All that is so amazing, because I tripped out. Like, we did a previous podcast with John Reese, and he was talking about how, like all of the hard work that went into what he was doing, like Rocket and stuff, was fun. And I was like, man, that's crazy that you use the word fun, because I don't look at it as, like, fun in the sense, like, this is awesome, like, yeah, I don't know, like it. But he's like, what is fun is being the best at what you do. And I was like, oh man, that's pretty wild to think of it like that, because like I get it. Like Unbroken was serious and it was very somber and had sort of this dark context to it, but it was fun in the sense that like you could go and see that band play or listen to that band and experience something, and it helped the listener and it helped people survive, and that's a big fucking deal.
It is, and it's overwhelming, and I didn't know at the time what we were doing was helping people. I had no idea. Like, you know, we were much bigger in our death than we were when we were around. I mean, the tail end, the last few shows, they were kind of big. The last tour was decently attended, you know, and there were some big shows here and there in Europe, but then the band was done, and you don't, you know, I still went to shows and, you know, kept doing bands over the years. So it wasn't until we did that reunion show for Eric's family when Eric passed, it was like, holy fuck, like.
So that was the first time Unbroken played after Eric passed?
Yeah, 98.
The one in
San Bernardino.
San Bernardino.
Yeah,
okay.
with Crimson Curse and stuff.
Yeah.
So at first it was going to be at the showcase, and Izat said, listen, there's no way you can play here. It's going to be way too big. And I was like, do you think? He goes, I know. And I was like, and I had no concept of how big or little the band was. And he's like, I have this other venue. It holds about, you know, 1,800 people. Like, we should think of, I'm like, I was terrified. I was like, I don't want to play this place and have nobody show up.
Yeah.
And we did, and a bunch of people showed up, and I couldn't believe there was just a sea of people. It was rammed, and so I'm like, oh wow, we did something. And then having kids up front, like singing and talking and remembering Eric and thinking about what legacy he left, you know, for his family and people that liked the band. It's beautiful. Yeah. And then we thought, okay, that's it, you know, and then we did the Burning Fight shows, and again, I was like, I don't think we should headline. I don't think people care as much, you know. I think there's pockets of people that care, and they were like, no, you don't understand. And I was like, okay, and I didn't, because I was playing in bands still and going on tour and seeing some people that were around, or younger kids that were like, oh my God, I just got into this band, I didn't know you were in that, and you don't think like, oh wow, this has echoed. I didn't know.
So, like, you were doing Over My Dead Body.
I was doing Over My Dead Body and Some Girls and Narrows.
It wasn't having the.
Yeah, I mean, people like liked the band, and people, you know, you were there. People would support the bands, and you know, they were decently attended shows, and the tours were great, and it was fun, you know. But every now and again, kids would come up to talk to me about Unbroken, and then it was like, oh wow, I didn't think that this really still carried on, you know. And then those Burning Fight shows in Chicago and LA, that's when it hit, like, oh, this band really means something. And then kids were just like crying and talking, and it's overwhelming, and you're appreciative, but it's really hard to hear someone else's grief when you're still kind of reconciling your own.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
But the amount of passion that people got from what you did is so rare. Not that it's unheard of, but it's so fucking rare. And I think that's something where, like, I don't know, it is weird to think about how Unbroken was the one, and, you know, Over My Dead Body or Narrows or Some Girls didn't make that same impact. But there's a lot of factors that come into it, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it was just time and place, and what we looked, it was access to things. I think there was like a bit of a mythos to the band because we didn't really do the reunion circuit. We didn't do all that, so people kind of didn't know. People didn't know much about the band. I mean, there was like grainy footage and you know, stuff like that. So it wasn't. People just like heard, and then the guitar player died, and it just became this like thing of like, oh, this is real. It's like, yeah, it was fucking real, you know, like like how we felt was real, like how we dressed was real. Like it wasn't just like wasn't like corpse paint. You kind of just, you know, that's how we dressed all the time. Yeah,
we lived it.
We lived it. That's how we dressed all the time, and you know, got made fun of and whatever. You know, I didn't really care. We were just doing our thing. That was our art and how we expressed ourselves. And we would talk about these bands from faraway places that, you know, that meant a lot to us, that were inspirational to us. And then we talk about San Diego and how proud we were of, like, you know, Jehu and Pitchfork and, you know, and you know, Locust and Swing Kids, all that stuff. We were just, like, proud of, like, how diverse San Diego was, you know?
I don't want to riff on San Diego too much, but, like, it is something fucking crazy here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird because I always struggle to think, like, does this happen other places? I mean, it does happen in other places, but whatever happens here is something so unique. And it has to be all these factors. Like, there's a gazillion factors.
Well, I think about, like, when punk started, like, you know, New York, London, whatever, the fight, the battle of who did it first, whatever. But I think about what was going on. Like, New York was a fucked up place, and you were either just, like, a jock, or you were into Journey or Yes, you know, some lame ass band, you know. Yeah, Yes is lame. I know, but
he's referencing Owner of a Lonely Heart, or we're referencing Fragile. But anyhow, okay.
The Nine Inch Nails record?
No.
Oh. No, but I just threw the Yes in because I know how much you guys love Yes. But
Good one. Well played.
But I think that, like, you think about New York, like, it was just, like, gritty, messed up, hopeless place that you were either some jock or some thug, whatever, you know. And then you think about London. It was desperate. There was nothing going on. It was Thatcher's Britain. Things were deteriorating. There was no future. You had all that going on. So you have all these artists like, well, we're just going to, like, fucking create our own world and have ideas and art and have all this exchange of information and ideas. And I think San Diego was very similar. It was a military town, so you either in the military or you were some jock surfer guy because it's a beach town and people get lazy because San Diego's chill. You can just, like, nah, man, it's cool. So you end up Sunday night football or, you know, whatever, and surfing. And like that was, which, whatever that you're into, great. But, and I think there was this, like, undercurrent of people like Bob Barley and the Amenity people and Cliff from Social Spit and all these people, Tim Mays, that were like, no, like, there's more to the world than just that. Like, let's, you know, expand the horizons and, like, bring bands and start bands and do shows and rent VFW halls. And then it just, like, snowballed. And I think that's why. I mean, when I've talked to Tim Mays about it, I'm like, what made you bring, like, fucking Discharge and all this stuff? And he's like, oh, you know, I was just going to concerts, seeing, you know, Zeppelin, all this stuff, and then kind of heard about these other bands and then got interested. And it's like, wow, I want that here. I'm going to start booking shows. Like, so it's like this inspiration of, like, DIY. Like, that's what it is. That's what punk is. Like, you started a label yourself. You started a studio. Like, all these people do all these things because they want to have a place where art and culture and things can thrive and support friends and support other artists. And I think that's what San Diego did really well. It was like, it's this weird military town where everyone could just be lazy and wear flip-flops all day. Or I can bring cool bands to town. I can start a label. I can start my own band. I can start a screen printing company. I can book shows. I can do fucking goth clubs, punk clubs, whatever it is. Like, people started creating space because they didn't want to be a jock. They didn't want to join the military. They didn't want to work in downtown, or they didn't want to be a beach bum, whatever it was, you know? So I think that's why.
There's that, I'm paraphrasing the Ian MacKaye quote or whatever it was, but he was talking about how, like, DC was right next to New York, and it was just in the shadows of New York, so it made it for, like, a petri dish where, like, this sort of mold could grow and create something unique. And I think San Diego is like that with Los Angeles. I think he might have even made that correlation. But it makes a lot of sense because, you know, you think about Los Angeles, they had everything. They were like, they had all the rad shit going on.
Mm-hmm.
Here we didn't, so we had to kind of figure out a way to make it happen.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was happy accidents, like putting two and two weird things together, and then you had this new strange thing. I mean, fuck, like,
yeah.
like Crash Worship, like where the
It's
fuck,
incredible.
What the fuck is that? You know?
Right? Yeah, Zendik Farm.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
just a hippie con.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're going to have this, like, punk noise art troupe come out and just lay waste to shit. Like, you know? Like, yeah, seeing fucking... I remember at the Cultural Center at Balboa Park, it's like Crash Worship and Drive Like Jehu and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, just seeing cool shows that... It's like, wow, I get to see this fucking killer, like, post-punk, like, hardcore band with, like, this weird hippie art collective.
Sure.
Like, just destroy shit, you know?
Or like going to school when I was at Mission Bay before I went to John Muir, like having heroin play at my school or Force Down.
Yeah.
I mean, Force Down was a big deal. So was heroin, but like also just the fact that a band called Heroin was
Got
playing
to
in like
play.
high school seems fucking crazy, you know. But then even like I don't know. I'm sure there's other schools like John Muir, but at the time growing up, I don't know if you ever knew anyone that went to John Muir, but it was like all the fuck ups went there, and I went there because I was fucking up at Mission Bay, and I was able to graduate. But it was like going there and seeing. I mean, I'm almost positive Paris, the hip hop artist, played it in Muir, or at least someone at Muir put on the show, but. You know, seeing like that shit, it
Amenity played Mirror.
yeah.
Like I went, like I
So did
did
Inside
school.
Out.
Yeah, and Inside Out, and I ditched school with like Chris Kohler.
Yeah.
Like, you know, someone else, like old school punk guy that's doing his own cool like little miniature game stuff. Like, yeah, I remember we ditched school and went to Mirror to go see Amenity and Inside Out play in a classroom.
But I don't think that happens in New York or LA or whatever. I think they just do it at the regular venue. But instead we
Yeah.
were like, well, fuck, we're gonna do it in the school.
Yeah.
Or on
Yeah.
a top of a roof or in a sewer or whatever, you know, like we
Yeah.
just figured it out.
Yeah, and I think that's why. It's just because LA got everything. I mean, LA had like Rodney on the Rock, who was like this like icon of like new music, and it's like, nah, that's fuck all that shit. Everything's under 2 minutes, and like here you go, like, and check out, you know, whatever, fucking Buzzcocks and The Damned, and you know all this stuff. It's we didn't have that here, so I think people created their own, you know, Rodney on the Rock. People created their own labels like Vinyl Communications and booking shows, and you know, Cliff from Social Spit, like bringing out like SSD records and stuff to San Diego, like working at Off the Record.
Yeah.
You know, Phil and Rich at Off the Record. It's like they had record shop, but they had all the new punk stuff that you can go there and just get educated, like get zines and books and records. And so we were lucky because people created these pockets. Like it was a youth culture movement of
But also,
people.
like, Off the Record was pretty important at the time because I would go in and see. To me, well, I grew up in Phoenix before, and so Zia Records was kind
Oh,
of
yeah,
like
Zia,
was
yeah.
kind of like Off the Record, where you could go in and they would be like, "Oh, little kid, buy this birthday party record or whatever. You need this." But I would go into Off the Record, and Cliff would tell me to buy certain records, and then it was like, oh, then of course he told me to buy the Social Spit record, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're in that band. This
Yeah.
is so crazy to me.
Yeah.
And then it kind of made everything level, where it wasn't like, oh, you're the band, like, oh no, this is my friend.
Yeah.
And that was pretty unique. But also seeing like I saw Drive at J.O., but I also saw Nirvana play it Off the Record in Hillcrest.
Yeah.
Or, like, that's crazy shit. That, I mean, I guess maybe it happened in other major cities, but for us, we were able to just make it work in a
because you had
strange way.
you had a lot of people that were like, I don't want to do this, I want to do this, you know, I don't want to do that, I want to do this. You had a lot of people just saying, fuck it, this is what I'm doing, you know, like, I remember seeing, like, you know, John Reese when I was a kid, you know, like, Pitchfork, you know, playing at Iguanas, like, opening for Bad Brains, like in 1989. I was
Some
16,
crazy shit, too.
and it was wild. It was like fucking Thunderdome in there. Like it was so crazy, you know. But then the next week going to see like PIL play there, and then going to see like Buzzcocks, or they're going to see Sepultura. Like all these bands would come through, and and it was awesome. Going to Iguanas because people just created spaces.
Iguanas in Tijuana for
Yeah.
people that are listening that
Yeah.
don't know, but that was like, there was this insane element of lawlessness when you would go there. It was like the Thunderdome.
It was
were-
3 levels.
and people were jumping off the 3rd fucking
Yeah.
balcony.
Yeah,
It was so brutal.
it was. Yeah, it was real crazy. Like because there was a while where you couldn't really do punk shows in San Diego because venues wouldn't book them.
There's also the 21 up thing where
Yeah.
it's like, It's just super
It's
strict.
a cabaret license. You
Yeah.
had to do. You couldn't do all ages. So, this venue opened up called Iguanas in Tijuana. And it's like 10 minutes across the border, like 10-minute walk across the border. You just cross the gate and just walk on in. And they had everything. I mean, I saw the most insane shows there.
Yeah.
Like everyone, like Nirvana, Ned's Atomic Dustbin, fucking Buzzcocks, 7 Seconds, like, Green Day, Rage
Yeah.
Against the Machine. Like, I've seen everything down there.
I mean,
Front 242.
yeah,
It was
Cramps,
sick. Cramps, yeah.
MDC, like everything. They had everything.
So it was crazy. So that's another like kind of adjacent thing, and a lot of people don't think about. Like back in the 80s and early 90s, there was like a lot of crossover between San Diego and Tijuana because there was bands there, so they would come up here and play. Bands here would go down there and play, and then there was like lots of venues and people helping. And now it's like starting to happen again with like Violencia and like newer bands. So it's really cool to see, and Renee from Fuerza Booking, like bringing bands down there and then bringing bands from there up here. So there's a really cool thing that just kept going in San Diego where people created spaces. They weren't just creating spaces here, they were creating spaces in TJ too.
Yeah, but it's because all of our family was, like, all of our, communities, brothers and sisters were right there. So it was the same thing. But now it's even harder because of the, post 9/11, like this getting across the border is insane. But that's it's pretty crazy. So you touched upon this thing earlier where you're saying like you were kind of not, and it's fine. I understand why you wouldn't, but you weren't giving yourself enough credit because I do feel like what you do, you're like I do these other things like normal things or whatever. Like but it is all to me seemingly punk because you started Heartwork Coffee and I felt like for one it was like. When you first started, I remember there was a big article in Vice or something about the guy from Unbroken has a coffee shop, and that is probably not every other coffee shop. There's a lot of them in San Diego don't get that extra thing, and people recognized that, and also the fact that like the way Heartwork functions is punk, So I feel like maybe you should give yourself a little bit more credit. I mean, even the way. Not to make it too personal, but like even how you raise your son and he goes to fucking hardcore shows and stage dives and shit, like.
Well, he doesn't stage dive. He wants to.
Yeah.
He'll get there.
He'll get there. He wants to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even like the way his brain works, you're like you're creating, like you are the parental figure pushing him into that world that has been influenced by that stuff. But even like Heartwork and all the other things that you do, I feel are. Seeped in those ethics and morals.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I think Heartwork, it wouldn't function the way it was if it wasn't for Sam and Kim and the staff, because it's like but it's also, they're part of the ethos. It's like we kind of just do everything ourselves. We don't have like big money, some shops get all this money and are able to do all these things and hire all kinds of people and, have these elaborate things, but we're just like, we just want to serve you a good cup of coffee and make your day better.
Kind of like an Unbroken record.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You're like, we just want to put out good music and here 31G can put it out.
Yeah. And like Unbroken, it took a while to get there, I think. Like, I think the first couple of years it was fine because we were supporting, Dave Kennedy's spot, and, using different coffee. And then we figured out, like, hey, we want to roast our own coffee. So, we paid for Sam to go to roasting school, and he learned how to roast. And then we bought my dad helped us get a roaster and, all these things. And Kim's family helped us get a roaster. So we did all these things to, like, kind of just keep it within, like, the family, so to speak. And then we just learned how to roast and then learned how to bag and learned how to sell, and we just kind of just taught ourselves how to do all these things. And I think for me, I'm a little removed from the shop now the last couple years because of just the things, but like my work has gotten more busy, so now I just do a lot of behind the scenes stuff with the shop. I worked a shift, every now and again. I was like 2 weeks ago I was working there, but I always wanted it to be this hub of where people can just come and hang out and meet interesting people, and that's like what's happened. You have like
people will come to town and they're like, I want to go there. You're
yeah.
Like, I mean, not this. I mean, it's it's not to be like it's just coffee, but like I get it why people want to go to that spot.
Yeah.
It's something special. It's like Pokies or whatever.
Yeah, it's like Pokies or even Kindred, right?
Totally.
It's like you go to your way to bring people to Pokies because it's like that's where you go for like just good Mexican food and like art and like just interesting
there's
things.
like
there's layers.
history or a legacy.
There's history.
Yeah.
And then the same thing here, like at Kindred, there's like a history and a legacy here with like Corey and his food and how he built it. So, and Heartwork has the same thing. It's like, you know, everyone involved, you know, is like artistic in some way and has some sort of like foothold in like supporting something in San Diego. And so we try to work with people that are like-minded or like come from the scene or at least support like art in some way. And it's interesting, like you go to Heartwork and you see like a doctor talking to some kid with face tattoos or a lawyer talking to a piercer about blah blah blah. Like it's just so cool that like people just it did what I hoped it would do.
Sure.
It's just a venue for people to hang out, have a cup of coffee, and just meet interesting people.
But there's also another level to that too, like where if you're in again, like you're a kid in the mall and you see someone wearing a Crash shirt, it's just the Crash logo. It doesn't really say what it is. I have been in New York and just not at a show, and a dude would walk by me with a Heartwork shirt on with the logo, and you're like, this is fucking crazy. Like that's the Crash shirt, you know, in a sense. It's pretty bizarre that you've harnessed that other element, which like the regular other coffee shops don't have that ability. I mean, maybe I just don't notice it, but like I will go on tour and see Heartwork stuff more than I would expect.
It's really random. I mean, I know, like you and Dave Lombardo were at Veggie Grill in L.A., and then Dave sends a picture of you and him, and there's a guy randomly in line to order with a Heartwork shirt, and I'm like, this is so crazy, you know, that like it's, you know, it's really cool. Like I'm very thankful. I would say though, you know, Sam and Kim and the staff do like probably 80-90% of the work. Like I would say the first 6.5 years I was there almost every day, like doing something, you know, but then just work got too much and I just couldn't keep up, you know. So now I just do behind the scenes stuff, and I think and it's interesting, you know, like my girlfriend said she was wearing a Heartwork shirt and like was at some random mall and someone's like, oh yeah, I love that spot, and it's just really cool because you kind of don't hear that with other things as much, you know. It's like it's an interesting,
like the inverse of it. It's like a normie was like, I love that coffee shop.
Yeah.
Not like a punk being like, that's my family right there.
Yeah, you know. But then it's like we get mail orders from like all over the world, you know, and people like other shops from around the world kind of know about us, and it's just I'm just really proud of what we built. It wasn't easy. It's very hard, but it was a lot of fun, and I am very proud of what we built. It means a lot that, you know, places like here or like even like Consortium and other places like support us, because they can easily go to some shop that has like 10 locations and, you know, has all the money and pizzazz, but they're like, no, like we like what you do, we like your ethics, like this is cool, like you guys make good coffee and you're nice people, like we want to work with you, and it just means the world to me that we built something that means something to other people.
The ethics of it. I mean, it's same with Corey and Kindred. I feel like, and it's not me like criticizing other places, but this is like our DNA. It's our family, and it makes sense why we would identify with this opposed to another restaurant or another coffee shop or another band or another punk band or hardcore band. Like you either have it or you don't, I guess. And I'm not trying to sound elitist, but it's just how things
it's not even that. It's just like people can feel the sincerity.
Sure.
It's not about like having a look or this or that. It's just like sincerity. Like, are you sincere in what you're doing?
But also, I mean,
having a good product helps.
Yeah. But then you also have like normal people coming here, and you're like, they have no fucking clue about all the like hidden gems that are involved in this.
But I think that's beautiful, right? It's like introducing. I love that though,
me
because
too.
to me, it's introducing. It's like Heartwork. People have no idea that the shop is named after a Carcass album. You have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, no idea. There's people that do, and they message, like, is this really? I'm like, it really is.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, that's so awesome, because when you see it, it doesn't look, you would expect it to be, like, fucking dripping fake blood and have the death metal logo, and it's just like, no, that's too obvious.
Yeah.
Like, let's just make it nice. And I'll never forget, there was this couple that came in with a kid. They just, had workout clothes, looked totally normal, like no tattoos. And then the mom of the kid just goes to me, she's like, I have to ask, like, this is a stupid question, but is this like named after the Carcass record? And I was like, She's like, yeah, I love Carcass. She started naming all these songs, and the husband's just like, what? She's like, I used to like be really into metal when I was a kid. And I was just like, this is amazing. Like, she knew all about it, and I was like, that. She's like, I love that. That's so cool. Like, so it's just kind of really neat that, like, if you know, and if you don't, that's okay.
It's fine.
And it's just like, we also just want to bridge that gap of like, listen, like, I'm an atheist, but I don't care if you're a Christian or whatever. Just be nice, be kind, like, be cool. I don't care if you're Muslim, Christian, Jewish, whatever. Like, just be nice, like, be cool.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what you look like. You don't have to have a bunch of tattoos. You don't have to, like, I don't care if you're in a suit or got butt flaps, with assuck patches on it. Like, I don't really care. I just want you to be nice. Like,
But maybe we learned that, in San Diego, like, because we were doing weird shit, still rooted in punk and hardcore, and then the rest of the world was like, yeah, fuck you guys. You're weird and whatever.
It was. Back in the 80s and 90s, it was a very strange time. Like, people were like, you're weird. Like, I don't want to talk to you. Like, get away from me. You have tattoos or piercings. Now it's, like, so ingrained in the culture, like, people don't really care. So we just want to show people, like, especially at the shop, like, just be cool. Like, just be nice. Like, that's all that matters,
It's not enough
Like, the world sucks. It does. It's a crummy place some days, and it's a mean place. And if you can just, like, give someone a cup of coffee and just be cool and nice, and they're just like, oh, like, and we have people, like, I was having a really shitty day, like, thanks for being nice today and for a great cup of coffee. Like, that's all I ever want.
Yeah.
And it's like that through punk and hardcore, like with Unbroken. It's like, or any band. It's like, yeah, we talk about these crazy things, but it's like, we just want to be nice people.
It's crazy too, like the recent Unbroken show, both of them, but more so at the Che, because it was very centric to. It was like, it felt like family on so many levels.
That was for us.
But it was bizarre to see it happen. And so many things are bizarre. Like, to see the really young people there and then the really old people.
I was shocked
that
there was, like, 16-year-old kids, like, diving and singing along. I was like, how do you even know? And it's wild.
To me, I felt like that was a redefining of hardcore, because it made it was just so. So when you were saying, like, or we were saying that this is like a mean world, it made me feel like this is a beautiful world.
Yeah.
And
it
that's
can
a
be
fucking crazy thing.
For those
But-
short moments in time,
Sure.
you catch the beauty of it.
But that's what we do. That's what art is, right?
And hopefully it's selfless.
It's not about, like, I'm gonna fuck everything up. It's like, you can go ahead. Someone's gonna come right behind you with the cement mixer and, like, repave the road. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But what you can do is make pockets of beauty, and that's what art is. I mean, that's why, like, I get enthralled with, like, seeing photos from, like, Chad and Ben and Becky. It's like, I stare at these photos like I do like a liner notes in a record.
Sure.
I'm like, who created this? Like,
But-
look at all these things like that's going on, and I think the Che is an aspect of that beauty that we created that night. All of us collectively that were there created that pocket of beauty in a really ugly world, And the people that were there, it was beautiful. It was cathartic. There was people crying, yelling, screaming. I couldn't even talk. So for me, that's what art is. It's just creating something out of nothing. And that night we create a pocket of cathartic beauty for people that needed it.
It's so fucked that Eric wasn't able to get
Yeah.
that. I mean, he did, but he got it in some way, but I wish he was there to know.
Yeah. And I don't, yeah. It's sad that he'll never know, but it makes me happy that his brother and, family, nephews and stuff and nieces that he never got to meet, get to see what an impact their uncle had.
Hell yeah.
In this little pocket of the world.
Yeah. I would like to ask you if you would just want to talk about what you have going on now in the future for you, and I don't know, or if there's anything else you want to, because I was going to bring up the project you did with Paul Cook, which is fucking crazy, but I don't know, I mean, what do you have going on now?
Yeah, working right now. I think I'm in this weird place where it's like I moved house and I'm slowly starting to feel where I want to be creative again. I've been in this support mode. I'm supporting the arts. I'm supporting bands. I'm mail ordering records, buying shirts, going to shows, buying prints, whatever it is. I'm in this space where I'm I want to be backseat. I don't need to be all playing bands. And I get asked all the time to play music, but I feel hopefully later this year, next year, early next year, I'll be in a place where I want to do that. I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of songs written and recorded. It's fun. Some of it sounds like gothy TSOL stuff, and some of it sounds like tragedy, it's just fun to have these ideas, but I want to play music again at some point. But Unbroken's playing in Philadelphia 2 nights with Blacklisted, which I'm really excited about, and I'm excited because it's new bands and old bands playing, and it's 2 nights sold out. It should be insane because I think it's a 700 or 800 cap room, so it should be pretty fucking bonkers. And it's our first time ever playing Philly.
Ever?
Ever. Yeah. So first and last, because we ain't coming back. So if you were there, awesome.
Never say never.
No, because we even got asked to hey, these shows sold out. Do you want to come up to New York? I'm like, nope. I don't want to do it. I just don't. I want it to be special. And it's we did the Orange County thing for Dave, and it was really awesome, and it was fun and beautiful, and I loved it, and I'm so glad we did it. And
the Indecision Festival.
The Indecision Festival. And it was so great to have my son on the side watching me and just hugging me and saying, "Oh, Daddy, you did really good." And that was oh my God, he was into it, and it made me well up because I was just oh wow. He still talks about it. Yeah. He's I can't believe you play the show. Yeah. He couldn't wrap his head around it because he's used to going to shows and seeing bands play. So but the Shea Show was for us, and these shows, I want to do it because I think it'd be fun, and I really love Blacklisted so much, and the fact that we were able to get them to play again was a miracle, and I'm really thankful that they're playing. So it'll be fun. And then, I don't know, maybe a show or 2 in Europe, and then that's it. I'd love to do the Shea one more time, just hey, we're going to play the Shea and just be done with it. It's time to put it to bed. And we've done everything that we wanted to do. It's getting harder and harder to play. It's hard to play the songs in general emotionally. It's weird. I don't know how to describe it, but when I play them, it's just weird because half the time I'm just thinking about, God, Eric would love this. Oh, Eric would hate this. Oh, Eric would be making fun of this guy. Or Eric would love this dude, or... So half the time I'm that, other half I'm just terrified and I'm blanking. I don't even know what I'm playing. So it's I don't know. So that's kind of what's next. And, hopefully a coffee shop, kind of we can expand and maybe open up a second spot. But right now we're just really focusing on that location, our roasting, and getting, working on our wholesale stuff, and and just like go to shows. I still love going to shows, like big shows, indie shows, whatever it is. Small punk shows, whatever. I try to get out as much as I can.
You still do Booty Basement? Is that still going on? You're not talking about that?
I talk about my DJ life. It's because I brought up Gabber here. Yes, I still do Booty Basement. I've started out as a fun Sunday afternoon event for 3 people's birthday parties. Myself, Dimitri, and Mario Orduno. Started out on a Sunday afternoon, and it was fun. So we just asked Sam. This is 2002. So I asked Sam, like, hey, could we do this? Sam from Whistle Stop, where we do that night. Can we do this on like a Friday or Saturday? He's like, sure. And it's been going ever since. So it's been going for 21 years.
And it's huge.
Yes. Yeah, we get like 300-400 people every...
Yeah, it gets butts to nuts.
Yeah. It really does. It's really... And it all started just out of a birthday party,
That's great.
I wish it started for the birthday party.
I want to say 2 things. One, I hope there is going to be another Heartwork, specifically in City Heights, but I really do hope there's going to be another one. I want to see it become big, or like I think it's rad because it's so special. And the other thing with Unbroken, I don't like a lot of music, and I don't like. I think a lot of I hate using the word, but like reunion shows fall flat on a lot of levels, and I think seeing Unbroken was really interesting because, for one, Todd stepped it up, and he fucking was the best that I've ever seen him play.
I agree. He killed it.
He was so incredible on drums. And of course, it's missing something without Eric, but that is not going to change. But I felt like it sounded so good, and you guys performed so well. And it made me go back and listen to the music, and I realized that it holds up. Where like I think we were talking about like earlier how maybe like Judge or Bold might not hold up. So I think Unbroken, fortunately for you, holds up. Where like a lot of bands, you're just like, this doesn't really make sense 20 or 30 years later.
Yeah.
It makes sense, and that's pretty rad.
Yeah, I feel that like we are very fortunate that most of the music holds up, and we kind of just stick to that lane. We know what people want to hear, so we just play that and just have it be fun. But also, it's just fun to hang out with my friends, because even when we're not playing the shows, we talk all the time. We have a text thread, and at least once or twice a week, we're all chatting about something, and independent of playing shows. It's like, so it's nice because we stayed connected. And I think that's why it works, because it's sincere when we're up there playing, because I'm not up there with like 2 dudes that I don't like talking to. Sure. Like, I love talking to these guys, and I hope they like talking to me. But so it, and musically, like what Steve and Eric created, just I feel holds up, and I think that's why it resonates, like why people still care.
And you guys are family. A lot of times that doesn't really happen.
Yeah, so we definitely we stay connected, and that sincerity I think shines through, because you can tell we're having fun, but we're also connected to what we're doing and each other.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's. I can't. I will say one thing, and I don't know if I ever told you this. Like, I think one thing that changed the trajectory for Unbroken forever and made us stand apart, it was Life Full of Regret, yes, because of how it looked and how it sounded and how we looked and all that stuff. The themes, I think, were different. I think that helped kind of alter our course. But I think putting out a record with someone from Struggle, like, gave us a different level of credibility. I think that it was, oh wow, like they're not just like a typical straight edge band, like they're fucking with like patch bands and like, like political bands and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, like that's San Diego, is our friend. who started this label, and I think that first 7-inch that you did changed the trajectory of the band forever, because it put us in a different category, and we were already in a different category because of how we looked and how we were playing kind of more metallic hardcore, but then that record was like more punk sounding, more thrashy punk sounding, and it was put out by someone who was in struggle, so it just opened up all these doors, right? And you got us in touch with Scott Byven to do the split 7-inch, so those things.
Sorry.
No, it was great. No, it was great. I mean, I think that you were instrumental in the band's history, and I don't think I ever told you that.
Thank you.
So
I feel like that you guys are my family, and it is an important thing. Obviously, because of Eric, because we shared him in Swing Kids too. But I don't know. Like, I felt like Unbroken was not my band, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I felt like a part of it. I had a connection to it in so many different ways. But I also want to say, like, with that 7-inch, I mean, Eric was, he's the one that steered that direction, and the rubber stamps were a total ripoff of Force Down, Vinyl Communications.
Gravity. I know.
It was all about, and not even realizing at the time, but it was very a San Diego thing, and I think it was, I think it did change things for Unbroken, and I'm glad I was part of that. I didn't know what I was doing,
None of us did. We were all kids, and I think that's the beauty of it. We were just kids, just doing something that we liked, and again, creating beauty out of nothing.
Which is interesting because I remember when that record was becoming an idea, I was like, I want to start a record label and have like nice real record covers, and Eric was like, nope, fold it over, rubber stamp, and I was
remember.
Like, I had a lot of hesitation to do that. But the funny thing is, I had no money, and so my friend Richard Jones, who worked at Kinko's, was like, we're just gonna fucking steal all the covers. So we just that was it really was creating something from nothing, because we were fucking stealing shit from Kinko's.
And I remember I was like, well, what are we gonna do? And he's like, oh, like there's this really cool strip that I want to use. I want to get stamps. And I was like, dude, that's awesome. Like, no one's doing stamps anymore except for like, Gravity and stuff. Like, and you're not really putting stuff out like right now. Like, that would be sick, So I was stoked I remember when he came up with that idea and wanting to go back and like using like scraps of paper and glue it down and just have it be all
Eric
strange.
was doing all that weird shit too. He was just wanted to fuck around, and I was like, oh man, it's weird.
One thing I do want to talk about is the Gigi Allen story, because I was listening to like the John Reese interview, and I remember we weren't old enough to get into the show, and we were standing outside, and all we could hear was chaos. Like, I'll never forget the chaos. Like, hearing people scream, and then a song starting, and then, like, some people just coming out, like, running, and, like, it was wild. And then I'll never forget, the show was over. It must have only been, like, 20, 30 minutes tops. He comes out, and he's just wearing underwear and boots and smoking a cigarette, like, and just all covered in whatever he's covered. Yeah. And I'm like, holy fuck, there he is. And I got so scared and I left. Yeah. I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't want to him to talk to me. I was so scared. I'm like, Gigi Allen's like 5 feet away.
Yeah.
And
I couldn't figure out what was on his body.
I mean, either. It was dark. It was the alley. Yeah. But it was just cool to hear John's perspective of being inside the venue when he was like, oh no, it was the whole deal. I was like, oh my God.
He did everything that people say he did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I just thought that was really cool to get his perspective of actually being inside the venue while we were too young to get in it, and we can just hear.
It's so crazy how many times Gigi Allen comes up on the fucking podcast. It's just bizarre to me. The last episode was with D Styles, and he was talking about Gigi. He brought it up. I didn't. I was like, all right, here we go again, Gigi. Yeah. So thanks for keeping it. Yeah, I'm keeping it real. Yeah, that's my Gigi story. But cool. I love what you guys do, and I love that you bring spotlights to different people. The Jose interview was amazing. Like, getting his perspective of being, Latino in this scene and what it was like. And it's true. Like, I was like, oh yeah, like, Jose, you're Mexican. Like, yeah, you're Rob, you're Mexican. And then it was like,
you just become buddies because that's, you know. So it was just cool to get his perspective of like growing up in San Diego and like how he got into punk, you know. I don't know. I love what you guys do.
We lucked out here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kindred.
Thanks to Kindred for the amazing food.
Always. And the
Yeah.
Kiss of Steel.
And the drinks.
And the Kiss of Steel. And the drinks. They are good drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Kiss of Steel. Because that was a Sam Hain song. And when I wrote the lyrics to Razor, I always remember, I love Sam Hain so much. And that's one of my favorite songs. And I always thought, like, what a neat idea. Like, when two cars, it's about a car crash. And when two cars are crashing, it's like a kiss of steel. And I thought, oh, you know, the song was about depression and wanting to kill yourself, and it's like, give me a razor. And I thought, what about the razor, like kissing your, you know, give your wrist a kiss of steel. And I thought, like, oh, that's a cool concept, and that's kind of where that came from.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Glenn.
Yeah, Glenn.
Cool.
There you have it, episode 35. I'm Luke Henshaw.
And I'm Justin Pearson.
Thanks for tuning in, paying attention to this one. Man, what a great time this was. What an awesome episode this was.
Fun times.
Yeah, and it's so cool to just be able to collaborate not only with like our guests, but also with other people such as Corey from Kindred. Anyhow, we appreciate you. We'd like to thank Earthquaker Devices, Fender, Heartwork Coffee, Andy, Becky, and you, the viewer or listener.
Yeah, you guys are awesome.
Thank you. And we're part of the Ruinous Media umbrella of podcasts, so check out all the other noteworthy podcasts that they're associated with. There's a ton of shit.
Yeah.
Ruinous has some seriously rad podcasts on there, so check them out. Thank you guys, and we will catch you on the next episode.
Yep.
Bye.
Colton Culture is proudly sponsored by Earthquaker Devices, Fender, and Heartwork Coffee.
Planet B.